we found in the sentiment report is women were more likely to say that they are changing employers in the next year. So 67% of women told us that they would be likely to switch employers in the next year, compared to 57% of men who are tech professionals. So that is one thing to keep an eye out on for sure. We also saw women were more likely to have changed or are considering changing to a non-tech profession. So there were 6% of women who said they either have made the change or they're considering making that change, versus 3% of men. So I know 6% is a small percent, but it's still double that of men.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, that it's interesting that folks or that women are saying, more women are saying, a significant more women are saying they're considering changing to changing jobs, right? You do have a point on here. It says more likely to a change or consider changing to a non-tech profession. Does that include both of those?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because I know in some cases, there's lots of articles out there these days saying the way to get more money is to hopping jobs, and not necessarily endorsing that, all the time, because I think you do eventually kind of get a reputation when people look at your resume saying, oh, you're only going to be here for a year. But that's interesting. I wonder how that will eventually kind of factor in as if you stay in tech, at least. If you're leaving, I think that's a different question or a different analysis. But if you stay, typically you're getting more. Okay. So what are some of the things you see that are companies are doing to address these type of issues?
Yeah, I think there are some things that I would at least encourage employers to keep an eye out on when it comes to retaining women tech professionals. The first being addressing the pay disparity and communicating pay equity analyses, any of those that have been done to show transparency, and even adjusting the salaries as necessary. So we saw 2/3 of tech professionals overall told us last year that their company had not communicated a pay equity analysis. That's 2/3. When we asked that same question to HR professionals, we had 6 in 10 say that they had communicated a pay equity analysis. So there's quite a disconnect there between tech employees and HR departments. So for sure, one thing to keep in mind. I do think it's also a little bit of a wake-up call for HR departments, given the importance that women are placing on having that equal pay for equal work. 41% of women say that it's extremely important that their company conduct a pay equity analysis, versus 18% of men tech professionals. So definitely a greater importance among women tech professionals that pay equity is done.
And another thing I saw touched on here is and we talked about it with Tara just a few moments ago, which is posting salaries on jobs. Have you noticed that has helped address some of this inequity?
I think it's helping to address it, but I think not every job has that salary listed. Right. And you mentioned there are laws in place now in some states that do require it. I think more needs to be done in that regard. And in my opinion, it's only hurting companies if they don't. Yeah. So another stat to share, and I know there's a lot of numbers I'm throwing out, but we saw nearly 7 in 10 tech professionals say that they are discouraged from applying to a job if it does not include a salary range on it. And 75% think that the salary will be less competitive if it's not listed on there. So there's a lot that I think hurts a company if they're not listing out that salary range.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's, it may not be required now, but I'm guessing whether it's through peer pressure or laws or both in the future, it's going to be something that people are going to have to post. And again, for the reasons you mentioned here, it's helpful as well. But I think there's a myriad of reasons why that's becoming almost expected, right? As you said, 7 out of 10 people, you come away looking at a job posting. Again, we were just looking at one a minute ago. We're like, yeah, okay, that's great, but then you waste a bunch of time and you get into the interview and like, oh, this is not even close to what I make, right? And you want to filter those things out ahead of time. So I know there's reasons, there's downsides that companies see and have for a long time for those, but it seems like the winds are shifting, and it's like you're going to have to get in on that, whether you want to or not. So, okay. Any highlights from your analysis that you want to share with us?
I think a couple. So another some differences that we also observe between women and men tech professionals certainly relates to the benefits package.
Okay.
So I do think, HR departments could be looking at making sure there's a balance for what people want. Traditional benefits like health, dental, and vision insurance, those all continue to be rated highly important to both men and women. But for women, there are a few other benefits like wellness and health, mental health programs, remote and flexible schedule options for sure, and also work from home stipend. Those were all significantly higher for women compared to men. In fact, remote work schedule was as high as health insurance and paid vacation days at around 75%. So definitely very important for women.
Yep. And I know I've shared some of that in the past when women are trying to balance, and anybody can be in this situation, but in a lot of cases it I think it ends up being more as you said, like more important to women because they've put it in the survey, like in a lot of cases that they're, people that companies that don't make accommodations for those types of things tend to lose out on top talent, right? Yes. I shared, it was probably a couple streams ago where I shared the example of like the law firm that said, well, if you can't work 60 hours a week, you can't work here. And then a lot of women were like, well, I don't really want to work 60 hours a week. Right. And then some person had a great idea. They're like, you lost all these really high, important law firms were losing like some of their top lawyers, and they're like, hey, you can just come over and work for me for 40 hours a week, or we can work on a part-time schedule. And they just cleaned up and were able to hire these folks. And it's been a while since that happened, but again, similar situation. You if you don't make and maybe you need, some on-call schedule or something. Okay, that isn't necessarily going to work for you, but in a lot of cases, if you don't make those accommodations, you're going to lose out on top talent.
Yes.
So agreed. That's something good to have. It's good to think about as a company.